No, I'm here. I'm alive. I'm feeling fine. How you doing? Sterling stepping in Friday night. I still don't know how you don't have Page and Plant. I understand Paul McCartney and John Lennon and Salt and Pepper I get, but then I also think of Salt and Pepper in a different scenario altogether. Simon Garfunkel to get the song going. It's ponderous, really. It's beauty of Lance McAllister. But he's out. I'm in, trying to make sense of things on a fine Friday night into a weekend, a reopening weekend, inside restaurants, inside bars, some closer to normalcy, small groups, social distancing. Don't get in my face. Stay away from me. Get out of my grill. A lot of people getting uncomfortable wearing masks or otherwise. And something I had not thought of. And Chick Ludwig is a friend who's in the vending business. It's a multi-generational business called Pioneer Vending. And one of those, I think it's the most recent generation in the business. Luke Adams with us on 700 WLW with Sterling. Luke, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Sterling. I appreciate you having me on. And just kind of like you said, I'm ready to get back to normal.
We all are, and trying to do it as healthfully as possible. And one of the things that had not really occurred to me, and I start thinking back of my time working at putt-putt golf and games, and going out and having beers, and doing club gigs, throwing darts, shooting some pool, playing video games, having a good time. Apparently not everything with the social distancing is getting back to normal in this part of the world, the tri-state in general and even and beyond. Please explain what you're dealing with your business, with these type of amusements and more.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that's kind of happened as Governor DeWine's order has unfolded, specific to bars and restaurants, have been the restrictions on gaming, on entertainment. And as this order was rolled out and the plan was rolled out, our equipment was specifically listed. And what Pioneer Vending and the 19 other businesses that are in this lawsuit against the state, we provide the pool tables, the jukeboxes, the dartboards, the coin-operated video games to these locations, and split the revenue generated with the bar owner. So ever since the shutdown, our industry has been completely devastated. So we were very excited and very hopeful when we heard that the bars and restaurants were going to be reopening. We did not see our machines and our livelihood being targeted the way it was. The specific thing that has us very upset is that our equipment was targeted while the state-owned lottery and Keno terminals are allowed to remain on. And there's so many people that will sit at these terminals and play instant games for extended periods of time. And when we got word that this was going to be how our industry was going to be treated, we put together a plan to make sure that we were protecting the bar patrons, that we were going to be supplying hand sanitizer and wipes and putting up signs to make sure that people sanitize before and after using our equipment. And the governor didn't seem to think that was acceptable. However, you can go into any bar or restaurant, carry out right now, and sit down at a state-owned lottery kiosk and play instant games, play lottery, play Keno, and that just doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem right. It just doesn't add up in our eyes.
It seems a little contradictory. I get what you're saying. Luke Adams, by the way, from Pioneer Vending, one of a multitude of companies that have gotten together in a collective lawsuit trying to allow them to be able to get back in business with these bars and restaurants, with these vending and amusements. My question to you, Luke, by the way, with Sterling, 700 WLW, is what type of guidelines have they provided for you getting back to normal and opening up? Are they covering these machines? Did they ask you to yank them out of these places, or are they just sitting there idle and everybody just has to walk by them on the way to the restroom or on the way to get another drink or whatever else and go, boy, I'd like to throw some darts, but I can't?
Yeah, unfortunately, they basically have to sit there off. We started having bar owners call us asking us to come pick equipment up. But to be quite honest with you, my warehouse is already full of equipment that we picked up. So we're kind of at the point now where it's not like we can continue to bring stuff into the warehouse because there's not any more room. So unfortunately, yeah, most of our equipment is just sitting in a bar, turned off. not earning anybody any revenue at all. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I understand what the goal originally was, to flatten the curve and to do everything we can to protect society. I mean, I'm a family business. I have kids. I have 53 employees who are all like family to me, and they have families. So it's always been about making sure that we do the right things to keep everyone safe. And when we, approached the governor and Dr. Action with a safety plan for our games, and basically had them, turn a blind eye to it.
So you had no communication with them other than trying to reach out to them and share information? I mean, do they respond to you? I'm just kind of curious. I know they've got a lot on their plate. You obviously concerned about your employees, your business, and those bars and restaurants that you have relationships with, and all those other businesses like yours that are in the same situation.
We had direct contact on multiple occasions with Governor DeWine. Actual phone conversations with him and his staff.
What did he say? Because to be devil's advocate, my experience working in a game room situation and having more than a night or two out on a regular basis, either for my business or just to have a good time, I can see where the idea of congregating and people hooting and hollering and getting close and having a few and giving each other a little grief about how they're throwing or how they're shooting a pool or whatever else that goes with it. Might maybe be a concern about, greater concentration or sharing of a germ or droplets or whatever else. Did that come up, or was that not even talked about? I'm just curious.
Yeah, that did come up, and the way that we attacked it and the way that we suggested, I mean, a lot of these games now, and this was kind of new news to DeWine and his staff, and I'm sure to a lot of listeners, a lot of these games now can be played online. You don't have to have multiple people playing. Darts are now online. You can play one player on a dartboard versus someone else in a different bar. Golden Tee is an online game.
Right, yeah.
So all of this stuff has evolved, and I think that was kind of forgotten. I think when you think about video games, you think of the old days. You had Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, and people would kind of congregate around that and let's try to beat the high score. But that's evolved and that's changed, and entertainment has changed. So that did come up, and that is what we said. Look, we're all for maintaining social distance. I mean, we're forcing bar and restaurants to spread tables out 6 feet apart, and if you're standing in line for a beer, there's X's on the floor where you have to stand. We were prepared to roll the same ideas out for our equipment. But it didn't work out that way. And now you go in somewhere and you see people standing in line waiting to play lottery, and it's like, why don't we fit in with this exact same mold?
Is there fear about the health, or because obviously if their machines are available and accessible and generating money, then I mean, is it a revenue thing for them? Do you think? I mean, I'm just kind of curious if it's the same type of environment. What is the difference between your machines and those involved with the lawsuit who are in vending and amusements like yourself, Luke, and what the state is doing with their lottery or whatever other machines they have?
Sterling, I think that's the million or billion dollar question. The state is generating an enormous amount of money on their machines, and that is more important to them. And that's why if it truly is all about public health and public safety, then I'm fine having my stuff off. But the state needs to follow that also. They can't tell me that my video game is dangerous and their video game is not dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, if it's all the same, comparatively speaking, then there is no difference, and it does seem kind of fishy. What is the next step? You filed this lawsuit in a collective fashion with these other vending companies, right? So the expectation is they will respond to it in a timely fashion, I would assume? Dangerous to do that. I know Benny Hill taught me never assume, makes an ass of you and me. So I should never do that. I know that. I know.
Yes, we do know that it is our lawsuit is in front of a judge right now. Hopefully by Tuesday, with it being a long weekend, the timing isn't great, but hopefully by Tuesday or early next week, we're going to see some traction with this and at least have a good idea, where we're going to be standing.
Now, you yourself have some 50 plus employees with Pioneer Vending, Luke, and been around since the early 1900s. So you've been through your company, your family, multiple generations. Now you're the fourth, right? So you have seen not just this pandemic, but you were around, or family members in the same type of business for the first Spanish flu in 1918 into 1919. So obviously we know more scientifically and so forth, but you've been around a while. How many other companies our employees are involved besides you and your family and those 50, 55 people?
Yeah, I mean, the other businesses throughout Ohio that are listed, like, there's 19 others. The size in the organization span from, smaller 8 to 10 person teams, up into where we're at into the 50s. So there's a lot of lives at stake, and it's just really frustrating.
I absolutely understand that, and that's livelihoods, and not just for you, but that's another revenue stream for these bars and restaurants that are involved too, if it can be done safely. And it sounds like it's no different than these Keno machines, which I've never understood Keno anyway. I'm going to have some numbers, and then somebody else is going to tell me if they're good numbers or bad numbers, I just don't understand that. I don't know. It's just weird. But that's a whole other conversation. How can people find out more about Pioneer Vending and this lawsuit and maybe get their voice heard in Columbus and elsewhere? Because your business itself is Kentucky, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio. I mean, you're everywhere.
Yeah, we've been in contact with Cincinnati.com, trying to get an article written by them. Right now we're just trying to get the word out because this is one of those things that kind of easily flies under the radar. Not a lot of people think about, when they go to their favorite bar or restaurant and play the jukebox. Not everyone thinks about who and how and where that jukebox came to be, or that dartboard or pool table. So we're obviously a smaller niche in the market, and at this point, we're doing our best to kind of rise up so that our voice can be heard.
Hopefully we did that, and hopefully people maybe reach out and say, hey, Governor, what about this? What about this, Dr. Acton? And these other states as well can sort of look to this also. Luke Adams, I appreciate what you're doing. I mean, that's a hell of a heritage since 1909, multiple generations here in Cincinnati and beyond. So I just remember my grandmother going to I don't know if it was a bar or what, I was too small. She wasn't drinking with me, clearly. And we talked about those old bowling games with the little metal puck, and then the little pins would lift up straight. That's where vending started for me. And it was like, can I have more quarters? Can I have more quarters, please? She's like, no, we're out of quarters. Just stop. So. Yeah,
I'm sure I have some service techs that are listening right now that have nightmares of those old games trying to keep them working.
That's it. Or the Pac-Man, which is now 40 years old today.
Crazy.
Yeah. Anybody playing Pac-Man anymore besides on their handheld devices?
Yeah, it's died down quite a bit. It's not the behemoth that it once was.
We're going to turn this into a topic too in a little bit, Luke. So I'm curious. Video games. Growing up around video games and vending and everything. What are your favorite video games that either you play in person or even at the console? Maybe the old Atari or Genesis or whatever else at the house.
Yeah, I've always been more of a fan of the actual stand-up arcade games. I never really got into PlayStation or Xbox, but you sit me down in front of an old school Donkey Kong, and I'll have some fun. And then obviously I grew up in the Golden Tee phase.
Yes.
So I'm a Golden Tee junkie.
Dude, I broke a finger playing the Golden Tee many years ago, trying to slam that ball into the thing. And I even worked at the putt-putt when I did it, and hard to explain. They're like, dude, you can't do that. And I had to wear a splint. It was very embarrassing. Anyway. Well,
it's a danger you take.
It is. It's tough. I've hurt myself more doing that than actually playing real golf, which is a whole other problem. And I was bad at both. Luke Adams from Pioneer Vending. I hope this goes someplace positively. You got a lot of people that are depending on this, and if it can be done safely and responsibly with the people playing and paying attention to what they're doing in these different restaurants and bars, and you guys making those things available in a fashion that makes it healthful as possible as we open stuff up. It doesn't make any sense why Keno's okay and me going to a jukebox or being able to go throw some darts, virtually or otherwise, or shoot some pool should be any different at all.
Absolutely, Sterling. I resonate that completely.
There you go. We'll look for the story in the Inquirer, Cincinnati.com, in the days ahead. Luke Adams, thanks so much for your time, my man. Good luck, and let us know how it's going. Check back in.
All right, we'll do. Thank you,
all right,
Sterling.
Take care of yourself. Enjoy the long weekend.